On September 8th, President Muhammadu Buhari launched the Change Begins With Me campaign. The essence, according to the government, is to emphasize the responsibility of citizens in the attempt to address the decadence of present-day Nigerian society and through the positive change that the country craves. In what many have described as a throwback to the war against indiscipline of the then Buhari military regime in 1984, the new campaign seeks to persuade rather than coerce people to achieve attitudinal change in all facets of society. I'll be joined now on the news at 10 by our in-house data analyst, Babajide Ogunsanya, to look at the new campaign and how different it is from other orientation programs in the past. You're welcome to the news at 10.
Good evening, Amara.
Good evening. Well, what's really new about this campaign? I mean, is it just a change of name? Does it sound similar to something we've already done in the past?
This is an interesting campaign. One major difference is it's coming a bit later than it did come when we look at the war against indiscipline campaign.
It's more than a year.
And then it was just why was launched 3 months into President Buhari's administration. But the interesting thing is why had 3 phases. The phase 1 was launched in Lagos on March 20th, and that focused on orderliness. And then on the 1st of May, the same year, 1984, the second phase of Y was launched, and that focused on work ethics. And then the third phase was launched on August 27, same year, 1984. The interesting thing is exactly 1 year after Y was launched was when President Buhari was ousted. But we've had a lot of history of interesting social and economic change type projects.
We have them up here.
We've got the free and compulsory primary education that was in 1977. But perhaps what is interesting is if we look at one of the major things we're talking about changing at the moment is the agricultural sector. And that similar thing happened in 1977 to 1980 when we had the Operation Feed the Nation and Green Revolution. Then in 1977, agriculture contributed only 23% to GDP. So Operation Feed the Nation was launched to improve that. But the challenge was by 1979, agriculture had dipped. It then only contributed 20% to GDP. And then Green Revolution was launched in 1980 to improve that. And yes, that even changed because agriculture's contribution to GDP then moved from 20% of GDP to 32% by 1983. So we saw a lot of positive change that the Green Revolution brought. But the challenge today is agriculture is now back, based on the NBS's last report, back to 22.5% of GDP, the same level it was in 1977. So here is what it means. Even though we're looking at the change program, we also need to clearly define how we want to change our plans for agriculture. Do we want to be known as an agriculturally driven economy, an economy that is driven by industries, or perhaps an economy that is driven by services?
I think what's also most important to ask is how much of an impact this will make on citizens. Because if you say change begins with me, it sounds like a blanket statement. You know, it's not as specific, you know, as some of these campaigns that you have outlined. Yeah.
So here's the challenge. The challenge is how do we measure the impact of change? Will people be, first of all, easily take on that message? And now there's no globally accepted way to measure the impacts of change. But one of the things we've done is to look at how easy is it for people to change even their smoking habits. And here's what the report clearly shows. At the moment, now this is a survey that was done by the Global Adult Tobacco Survey, which the World Health Organization, the NBS, and the Federal Ministry of Health participated in. It clearly shows that even though 82.5% of the people believe tobacco causes serious illness, and now these are those that smoke, less than half of them, that's less than half of smokers, have made an attempt to change. So here's what it means. It clearly means once you have a habit, it is often difficult to change. And now this is about the closest proxy to be able to find out how easy and how willing will people want to change. But is all O+? No, it isn't, especially if we look at some similar program that we had in 1986 and 1987, the Popular Structural Adjustment Program, SAP, and MAMSA, Mass Mobilization for Self-Reliance, Social Justice and Economic Recovery. 2 things that happened before SAP was launched in 1986. The first was the unemployment rate was extremely high. And then what the president then wanted to do was to find a way to reduce the unemployment rates. He had also looked at in 1986, the commercial lending rate for the first time went as high as 13%. So SAP was launched, and then the plan was to be able to use SAP as a program to change people's attitude. Now, three things happened between SAP and MAMSA. Between 1986 to 1988, domestic debt in the economy hit 47 billion naira, an increase of 65% within 2 years. Now, what people are asking is, will this same thing happen this time around with this change program? Then as well, our foreign debt hit 133 billion naira within 2 years, between 1986 and 1988. Amara, that's a 223% increase in foreign debt. And perhaps even more importantly, looking at the average exchange rate of the naira to the dollar in 1986 was 2 naira 2 kobo. By 1988, it had gone as high as 4 naira 50 kobo. So people are asking, what will happen this time around? Will our domestic and foreign debt increase? Already we're seeing changes already to the exchange rate. The days ahead will be interesting to clearly understand what the policies will be.
Yeah, and the CBN is meeting on Tuesday for that Monetary Policy Committee meeting. What should we expect, considering that this is the first meeting that the country, the first meeting after the country officially got into a recession?
Clearly, what this means, Amara, is within the next 48 hours, the CBN will be taking the toughest and most important decision in the history of the country. Right now, we are looking at...
What's the decision?
The decision will be based on the monetary policy. Right now it's 14%. Mm-hmm. The cash reserve ratio is 22.5%, within the band of minus 500 and plus 200. Inflation rate is 17.6%, the highest in a decade. But all is not gloom, because inflation month-on-month rate right now is 1.01%. That is the lowest this year. So it will be interesting, since the CBN is now caught between the devil and the devil's wife. Let's clearly see what the CBN will do. Will they take short-term decisions that will impact the economy, or will they take long-term decisions that will favor the people? It's all interesting within the next 48 hours, when the world indeed waits to see what the decision will be.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thanks for being on the news at 10.